Hello, my name is Meganova, and this is Pillow Talk, the series where I talk about a thing that I've recently watched or played. And earlier today, I watched Deadpool 2. And as you can see, I'm a slight bit of a fan. Actually, I should have probably just put my comics in the background, but no, never mind that. That's not important right now. What is important is also, as it says in the title, there's gonna be spoilers. I'll try to avoid spoilers at first, and then go more into that later. But first of all, I will just say this is a fucking sublime Deadpool movie. Like this, it did what any good sequel should do. It takes the elements of the first movie and just builds upon it and makes it better. Like you're already introduced to Deadpool and a lot of his side character and some of his side characters, so they don't spend too much time on developing them, or well, more like they don't spend too much time introducing them, because you should already have watched the first one. And I mean, the humor is on point. All the meta comments about. At one point, he references the fact that that his first movie is the second best grossing R-rated movie in the US, but worldwide it's the top one. Like, that's, you know, one of the funny things he'll reference. And I mean, the effects were good. Not amazing, but good. Without spoiling too much, I know I said spoilers would come later on, but Juggernaut shows up in this movie, and he's CG, and the CG on him was a bit spotty. Like, I'm fine with the CG on Colossus, because like a chrome finish is fairly easy to make look believable in CG. So it's a bit better in that regard. But Juggernaut, he was supposed to look like a human, just, you know, extremely bulky. Like, he's taller than Colossus. And fucking Colossus could wrap himself around one of his arms. Like, he's fucking huge. So, of course, they couldn't get a regular human to play that role. That makes sense. And I'm happy that they actually went with doing him like this. Like, it's kind of like with the Hulk, but also with the Hulk, like, the CG on him, because he's green, and you know he's supposed to not look human, it's a bit more forgivable that it might look a bit weird sometimes, because at times the animation on Juggernaut, it just looked choppy. Like, sometimes it just looked like it had a bit of a low frame rate. Like, he looked like a video game character that was lagging. But it happened very sparingly, and overall I was able to get over it, so I think most other people would be able to get over it. It's not that important in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, as you would have seen in the trailers, the main plot is that we have Cable going back in time, because that's what he does. I'm not gonna spoil why just yet, but he goes back in time, and again, as said in the trailer, he wants to kill this kid that Deadpool saves earlier in the movie, because he has, like, this freak out at this orphanage he lives at, where there's a lot of police and shit, where we basically find out that he has been abused at this place because the leader at this place, he is like very prejudiced against mutants and wants to eliminate mutant powers and stuff, I think. Not sure, but that's the basic gist of it. Which ends up getting Deadpool and the kid, Russell is his name, they end up in this mutant jail where they get these collars that eliminate their powers. Which actually is a pretty important plot point in the movie. Because, well, as you know, Deadpool's power is his healing factor. Which is the only thing that is keeping him from dying from the cancer inside him. Which is why he has the fucked up skin he does. Well, yes, it's partly because of all the burn scars he got in that thing in the first movie, but it's also a lot because basically his entire body is just one big cancer tumor. And that's what has fucked up his skin everywhere. And yeah, that's the basic gist of it here. Also, we see a few times where Deadpool, he essentially dies, but it's kind of like, actually, no, I'm gonna get into that in the spoiler section, because there's an essential plot point that happens earlier on that you have to know to understand what is going on here and what it is in reference to in terms of the comics. So, what happens is, where was I going with that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the basic plot of it, but now we're gonna get into spoilers because I don't feel I can talk about a lot of it more without getting into spoilers. Okay, so what happens is, in the future, Russell, aka Fire Fist, apparently his biggest wish in the movie is to kill the leader boss. I'm not sure, it sounds weird to say leader, but I'm not sure what other word. Dean? I'm not sure if he's the dean, but whatever. The headmaster. I'll just call him the headmaster. That's fine. The headmaster of this orphanage. Firefist, he is very adamant about wanting to kill this guy because of all the shit he's done. Which, I mean, I understand. He's been torturing these kids for years and doing God knows what kind of weird shit to them. Oh, wait, fuck. I forgot to mention the X-Force. But then again, I can't really talk about them without doing spoilers, because spoilers, they don't last very long. What happens is, yes, but in the future, he kills Cable's wife and daughter, which obviously pisses him off to no end. So he's like, well, I have to go far back, because right now he's a bit too dangerous to deal with. So I can't just go back like a few days or whatever. So he ends up going back to when he was a kid. And it's explained that the further he goes back, the more unstable it'll be, and also the more fuel he'll have to use, so he won't be able to get back to his own time. Also, again, without spoiling just yet, there is a death scene that is reverted, but it doesn't feel cheap. It still serves as character development, which I think is that's pretty admirable. Like, you don't see that very often outside of like Dragon Ball, where there's plenty of death scenes, but everyone is still brought back, which I guess it in some ways kind of cheapens it because, well, they know they can be brought back, but sometimes it still has some impact. But never mind that. So Cable goes back in time to deal with that, and of course, well, and I really love how well Ryan Reynolds and the other writers of this movie get Deadpool. Like, yes, he's a murderer, he's a mass murdering psychotic, but he can't get himself to hurt children. Like, that's just not a thing he does. I mean, yes, at one point he does point his guns at Russell, but it's never implied that he would actually have done it. It seemed more like he was doing some kind of like scare tactic. In my opinion, at least. And the way he ends up resolving it is that he knocks Russell out by throwing his sword at him in a way that ends up making the hilt hit him in the forehead. And I thought that was fucking hilarious. Also, my favorite character in the movie is Yukio, which is the girlfriend of Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Which it's so weird to call her Negasonic Teenage Warhead, because what is she gonna call herself once she's not a teenager anymore? Like, is she just Negasonic Warhead? Negasonic Adult Warhead? That just sounds stupid. I mean, it already sounds stupid with having to add the teenage, but never mind. That's talk for another time if I ever talk about that again. Okay. But she was just adorable. Like, just the cutest thing. And I have a thing for cuteness. It's just, I just love cuteness. Which is why I love watching a lot of these, like, cute slice of life anime stuff, like Maid Dragon, Flying Witch. I gotta get around to watching Non-Biori at sometimes, and also Lucky Star. This is one of the among the first anime I actually properly watched, like over 10 years ago at this point. Fuck me. Okay, but what ends up happening, oh yeah, and also yeah, with the X-Force, because Deadpool ends up escaping, and he then decides, okay, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to do something about this. I need to save Russell because they're gonna do this prisoner transport where Russell is in, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna sabotage this transport and I'm gonna go get him out from there and help him. Okay, fair enough. And he's like, well, I can't do it alone. gonna need a team. So he's gonna start a simple X-Force. And he gets all these characters in. And except for Domino, they all die before they even land with the fucking parachutes. Okay, one person survives the actual landing. And it was actually also foreshadowed. They had talked about that they had been storm warnings. So it would be hard to control their parachutes. But yeah. Everyone except Domino and Deadpool, of course, ends up dying in various horrific ways. The least horrific way was why can't I remember his name now? It's the big buff guy from the Old Spice commercials. Terry Crews. He dies by, he doesn't even land, but he gets hit by a bus while he's still in the air. That's the most basic way that any of them die. The Vanisher, who can turn themselves invisible, he lands on some electrical wires, which ends up electrocuting him, and he just goes on fire. Peter, he lands, there's this other guy, Shatterstar, who seemed a bit up his own ass. But yeah, he has very long hair, so he can't see where he's going because his hair is, so he ends up getting chopped up in the rotor blades of a helicopter. And, then there's this guy, Zeitgeist, who can vomit out acid, apparently. He ends up landing in a wood chipper. And Peter, he's the regular guy. He lands just fine. But he wants to go and try and help Zeitgeist get out of the wood chipper. Like, he hasn't been caught properly by it yet. So he's like, I'm gonna help you get out of it. But, like an idiot, Zeitgeist ends up vomiting some acid on him, which kills him. Like, it just takes out one of his arms and just kills him because it starts eating up his internal organs here. And he then goes into the wood chipper. Like, it's some pretty brutal stuff. But it's still cartoony enough that it doesn't feel too gratuitous, I guess. And Deadpool himself, he just gets stuck on a billboard. Like the dingus he is. So... And, that scene was pretty incredible, I gotta say. But also, sorry I'm rambling all over the place, but the reason why I like Yukio so much is just, like, she barely says anything then, "Hi, Wade!" But it's just the way she says it, she's just so damn adorable. And it just stands so much in contrast to Negasonic, who's just always, you know, this doom and gloom, sour, like, goth teenager. And Yukio is just like this extremely colorful Japanese girl. And I just love the contrast between them, and the fact that every time they see Deadpool, they just have the diametric opposite reaction. Negasonic, she's always just sighing about at him. And then Yuki's just like, yeah, hello! And she's just so happy. It's just... In a movie that is significantly darker than the first one, she was a nice ray of sunshine whenever she showed up. Like, she was just so pleasant to have here in this movie. That otherwise, like, it does get very gloomy and very depressing. Like, I mean, the first one did get a bit depressing. Like, his girlfriend got kidnapped, and you find out with his cancer and the torture he went through and all. But it still overall felt lighter than this movie. This movie was much more focusing on the drama, but it did it well. It was still believable within the context of it being a Deadpool movie. And I loved that. That was absolutely great. Very early on it starts with Deadpool basically giving away half of it. It's like, he's like, oh, fucking Wolverine. Yes, he ends. Not only does he steal my thing about being R-rated, but he also tops me by dying at the end of his movie. And where he just says like, well, guess what? I'm dying in this movie too. To which he throws a cigarette up in the air as he is laying down on all of these flammable barrels. And they then explode, and he explodes into several pieces. And then we have a flashback of what happened, of what went on, where we find out that his girlfriend dies after they have finally decided, oh, we're gonna have kids now. We're gonna try to make some babies. She dies because of this one guy. Because he basically, Deadpool has now become like this international hitman. Goes around killing slumlords, I think is the term he uses. Just goes around killing those as contracts and shit. But there's this one guy who ends up escaping him, which comes back to bite him in the ass because they find out where he lives. And Deadpool ends up killing most of them except for the leader guy who shows up right at the end and ends up killing his girlfriend. Which actually in the after credits scene is actually also rectified. Like he changes that so she doesn't die. But I'll get to that. What happens is basically some shit goes down in the prison, which ends up making Russell think, okay, I shouldn't try and fuck with the big guys. I should try to make friends with them. So what he does, which I honestly is pretty genius, he ends up making friends with the Juggernaut who is in the so-called icebox. Although I don't understand why he has his helmet. Why would he be wearing his helmet in the icebox? Usually whenever he is he's imprisoned, they make sure to remove his helmet. That was a bit of a plot hole, I feel. Usually they would have removed his helmet and have it securely stored somewhere. But that's overall, I guess that's a minor nitpick. And I mean, it doesn't even really come into it's not really a major plot point anyways, because Xavier doesn't have anything to do with the story. Although, there is this pretty funny gag where, once again, Deadpool is complaining, well, why do we see so few of the X-Men? Where we then see this open door into this conference room where you see most of the X-Men from the new continuity. And they're just trying to be quiet, and then they just quietly closes the door. And that was too fucking funny. Like, that was amazing. Fucking loved that. But Russell ends up making friends with Juggernaut, which comes into play when they fuck up the whole prisoner transport thing, where Juggernaut gets out. Like, they get Russell out, but they also get Juggernaut out, which, you know, not great. Yeah, they've become good friends at this point. Also, at this point, Juggernaut fucking rips him in half. Juggernaut rips Deadpool in half. Like, he tells him, I'm gonna rip you in half, and he does it. Like, just takes him in the upper body and in the legs and just rip. Just fuck. Like, they do not spare any of the violence. And also, this is where you then see his lower body growing. Like, it seems like they were trying to outdo themselves with the tiny hand. Where now he's growing out these tiny legs, and you fucking see his baby penis as it's growing back out. It was so weird. But it's at this point, and I fucking called it. I was telling people earlier that a lot of people were saying, I don't like the idea that Cable is gonna be the bad guy. And I was telling everyone, you know what? There's probably gonna happen something at the end of the second act that ends up making Cable change his mind, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna have to team up with you guys, and we're gonna have to go do this. And that's what fucking happens! I feel so good. I mean, yes, it was extremely predictable, but it seems like I was the only one, at least among the people I know, who was able to predict it, so I'm pretty proud of that prediction. But yeah, they end up teaming up against them in there. Also, there is this amazing fight scene between Colossus and Juggernaut, where Colossus finally is like, okay, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna fight dirty. Because I can't beat this guy without fighting dirty. Like, he's just way too much for me. I just gotta go all out. Which I think is a nice bit of character development for Colossus, and also it kind of shows that there is this level of mutual respect between Colossus and Deadpool. Like, it's not just this that Colossus is like, oh, I want to be your mentor and I'm superior to you in every way. No, Colossus, he is humble enough to realize, I can learn things from Deadpool. I can learn things from him. And sometimes, even though it's not pretty, his way of doing things is the most efficient. So I thought that was really nice. That was a nice character dynamic between those two. And of course they end up stopping Russell from killing the headmaster, and basically Deadpool tries to be like a negotiator, and he's like, no, you shouldn't kill this guy, because once you've killed him, you'll just start killing more, and things are gonna get fucked up. So if you're gonna kill anyone, kill me. And he takes one of the collars around his own neck, and it's like, if you're gonna kill anyone, kill me. And he has been very suicidal throughout the movie because he wants to go and see his girlfriend. And this is one of the really important parts. There is several times where he essentially dies, but because of the way his healing factor works, it will still resurrect him, essentially. So what happens is he transitions over to the other world, where in the comics, this would mean that he would meet up with Lady Death. And they would meet up because in the comics, he literally had a thing with death. There, with the Marvel's embodiment of death. But since Lady Death has never been introduced in any of the movies, they couldn't really... I guess they didn't feel like they could do that. So what they did was that because his girlfriend was dead, she was the one he met up with every time he died. Where he was talking basically to her dead soul. And she was like, oh, your heart is not in the right place, and yada yada and all this kind of stuff. And what happens here is, like, Deadpool is almost getting through to Russell. But he ends up being like, no, I can't trust anyone. Everything is fucked. Everyone is against me. So he still tries to kill Deadpool in order to get to the headmaster. But there's this gun lying over here in the sand with one bullet left that that Cable goes for. And he shoots at Russell, trying to kill him, of course. But Deadpool sacrifices his own life, jumping in front of them. And he dies. Like, he legit actually dies. After having the longest, most hilarious death scene ever. Like, it takes him like 10 minutes to die. He constantly has things he wants to say. It's like, it's just all of the fucking death scene cliches. Where it's like, he sings a bit of this song that him and his girlfriend was singing in relation to this movie they liked. And he has to tell everyone that, oh, this is the thing I liked about you, and all this crap. And it was hilarious, as well as being sad, because in the trailers, they'd been talking about, oh, we're only going to make 2 movies. And he said in the start of the movie, oh, I'm actually going to die. So you're like, okay, they might actually go through with this. He might actually die. But what happens is, Cable has a change of heart. Which serves as character development for him. He's like, no, you know what? I can't kill him. And this then ends up being a part of another thread of happenings. Because at the start of the movie, before his girlfriend dies, they give each other these anniversary presents, where he gives her this, like, value token or whatever thing from that arcade they met at, that is like pure lead, apparently. Where she gives him her... I don't remember the English name, but in Danish we call it a spiral. It's basically this thing you put up into the vagina that makes it so a woman can't get pregnant. It's one of these contraceptive things. I don't remember what it's called in English. But I guess anyone who knows what it is will know what it is. And it's her way of saying, well, I've had it taken out, which means we can now try and make children. So, but after she dies, he holds on to this as a memory of her. But in the prison scene where he fights with Cable, also another tangent, but the fight scene with Cable here is so goddamn brutal. Like, the way they use slow motion and the sound effects of when Cable hits Deadpool with his fucking metal arm. Like, fuck! Like that, it hurts to look at. Like, it was fucking brutal. Like, they didn't even and there weren't even any, like, blood or any, like, oh, you can see the broken bones or whatever. You just can feel the impact. It was, wow. But in this fight, Deadpool ends up dropping the coin, and Cable is like, oh, I'm gonna take this as a memory of you. And he keeps a hold of this, but what happens is as I said, Cable, he has a change of heart, so he turns back time. He uses the last bit of fuel he has that he could have used to get back to his own time. He uses that bit of fuel to go back to when they get out of the car, where he then takes the coin, or he doesn't let Deadpool know it. What he does is he just pats him on the chest, but in doing so, puts the coin into like a pocket or whatever he's supposed to have here. Because he knows that everything else is gonna go as it did before, so he's gonna shoot him in the same place. So Deadpool is still going to technically sacrifice himself, but he's gonna have the coin there. And Deadpool immediately, when he sees that the coin is there, he immediately figures out, yeah, he went back in time to undo it. And he's like, you did this for me! No, I didn't. But you did. You did do this for me. I'm not gonna go into that. That was hilarious, but again, you technically get your death scene, and it's undone, but none of the character development is undone. Like, you have the character development for Cable, where he's like, he has a change of heart, and realizes, you know what, I actually kind of like this guy. This guy is actually worth saving still. He might be completely off his rocker, but he's a good guy. So I'm gonna reverse this, even though it means I can't get back. And I mean, my future is already saved, so my wife and daughter, they should do fine. It'll be fine. And yeah, I think that's mostly it for the most important stuff of this movie. Like, I just fucking loved it. And then we get the after credits scene where Negasonic, she fixes the time device, because apparently she can do that, which then ends up where Deadpool, he goes back in time, and that was actually also kind of funny. What he does is he goes back to the point where Peter would have died, and he's like, no, go home. Like, this is not for you, just go home. It seems like he's the only member of the X-Force he saves. Like, he just didn't give a shit about any of the others. Which was kind of funny, but I still would have wished that he would have saved Terry Crews. And it was quite the fake out we got there, where we see Terry Crews in an outfit and everything, and he ends up doing nothing. He doesn't even land. He gets hit by a bus before he lands. But I guess that's a pretty clever fake out. Like, I do enjoy that even the trailers that like showed actual clips from the movie, still didn't give away anything significant from the movie. Like, we live in an age where a lot of trailers, they will like just straight up give away the supposed plot twist. Like, in Batman v Superman, it gives away in the trailer, oh yeah, Wonder Woman is gonna show up and she's gonna help them in the end of the movie. And the main bad guy that they end up teaming up against is gonna be Doomsday. Even though he looks nothing like Doomsday, but you know, details. Like, that was nice. It was the same thing with fucking Infinity War, where it's like you see a lot of stuff in the trailer, but it doesn't give away anything significant. Like, when you then watch the movie, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of shit in here that we had no idea about. And I fucking love that. But what he does in the, like, it didn't have an after-credit scene. It had, like, 2 mid-credit scenes. One of which is, I don't remember the one of them, but I do remember the first, I think it was, where, he then uses the time travel device to travel, apparently it can also travel between dimensions, I guess? Because what happens is, he also goes to Wolverine Origins and ends up killing his own self from that movie. Because he's like, nope, fuck it. This is not gonna be a thing. Which was just geniusly done. And he also ends up going back in time to where he is then aware that the boss of the crime syndicate, whatever thing, is gonna show up. So he ends up throwing the butter knife into his forehead. And it was glorious. So, most of the deaths that does happen in the movie is actually reverted by the end. And again, it doesn't even feel cheap. It makes sense within the context of everything. I thought they did it in a good, and they also managed to do it in a comedic way. Like, just great all around. Fucking love this movie. As I said, my only problems are with Juggernaut, that his CG is a bit iffy at times. And it was weird that he had his helmet on. Everything else, great. Also, I'm a bit on the side that I'm not necessarily thrilled with the character design of Domino here. Like, I don't mind that she's black, but I do think that the thing on her eye, I wanted that to be bigger. Like, they should have made it a bigger thing. It just kind of reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender, where in relation to the cartoon, in the movie, like in the cartoon it looked like this big massive burn scar. In the movie it just looked like he forgot to apply sunscreen around his one eye. Like, but those are some fairly minor nitpicks in a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. I think it's better than the first movie, but you should still watch the first movie before going into this. So my conclusion, absolutely amazing. If you get the chance, go watch it. The action is great. Yes, it's amazing. So if you liked this video, please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. I'm toying with some ideas of trying to maybe make some other kinds of videos that isn't just vlogs of me talking about movies and series and games. So I might get into that, but I also stream on Twitch regularly. I had a month off or whatever because I was feeling like shit, but I'm getting back into it. So please go subscribe to me there, or follow me. You can't subscribe to me yet, but go follow me on there. And yeah, that's it. Go follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever. And I will see you out on the high seas. Yar!